Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. We're here today on episode 2000 of the Cabral Concept. Yes, 2000 shows. It has been my pleasure over the past 1,999 shows going through all things wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging, and pretty much everything in between. It was my goal about 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now, to be able to share with you exactly what I've learned over the past almost 25 years in practice, helping people to transform their bodies, transform their health, transform their minds, and really live their best life. So what I wanted to do those 5, 6 years ago was go from a really busy Boston practice. We would see over 20,000 client appointments a year. We've seen over 250,000 client appointments. And what I wanted to do was not just be able to help people, yes, that would fly into Boston, but from people from the greater Boston area, but to actually be able to get this information out to people all over the world, because this information is not mine. I've spent my entire life accumulating the knowledge from many great doctors and health practitioners before me. I spent over 2,300 hours traveling all over the world, to India, to Sri Lanka, to China, to Europe, and all over the United States, studying various forms of natural health to what today I've combined into an integrative health-based practice. I've read over 3,000 books. I've got back to get my doctorate degree, and I only did this to first be able to heal myself and then be able to go on and try my best to heal others. So it's now with great pleasure I can say, after 5 years, over 22 million downloads of the Cabral Concept, that we've really created a thriving global health community, and it is because of you. Your listens, your reviews, your support, your comments, everything that fuels this machine and this amazing team that I also have with me that makes all of this happen every day. So one, I wanted to say this. I couldn't do it without you. There's no way I could do a daily show without your support, so I truly appreciate you. And also just know that we are always looking to get better. That means let us know what the topics are that you want to listen to, that you want to hear about, that you want to learn about. And also keep in mind that we always do need your support. Your shares mean a lot to us. Our goal is to continue to keep this a free podcast, which is my goal, of course, 2,000 shows in. But what we want to do is to make sure that this information gets out there into the world. So, of course, anytime you listen to a show and you say, hey, this might be good for this person, feel free to share it with them. That's really what it's all about. The second is this, that after 2,000 shows and now 3 years of the Rain Barrel Effect being published, believe it or not, it's been 3 years. It took me 5 years to write the book. 3 years now it's been in circulation. I don't even know how many copies have been sold, but quite a number. And 100% of those profits always and have always gone to charity, and they always will. But we've actually set up a now page at stevencabral.com to give that book away for free. My goal is to make sure that all of this education is out there, that all of these podcasts are out there, that my book is out there, that is essentially free for anyone that wants to learn how to heal, that wants to learn how to get well, or lose the weight, or really live longer, stronger. So right now you can head over to stevencabral.com. We're going to keep this going for as long as we can. And all you have to do is just pay for the shipping and handling. That's it. I pay for the book to be printed. You pay the shipping and handling. That's the fairest way that I could think of. And that book is now completely free. If you've been thinking about giving the book away to someone, if you want someone to learn more about natural health and really how we get sick, but not just how we get sick. There's a lot of books on that, right? I go through the top 10 ways that we get sick out there. But what I want to do is also share with you my de-stress protocol, the diet, the exercise, the stress reduction, the toxin removal, the rest, the emotional balance, the scientifically backed supplement protocols, as well as the success mindset. That's how you get well. Too many people are still looking for the single bullet supplement, the single bullet pharmaceutical. It doesn't exist. But when you look at the de-stress protocol, that's how I got well and overcome a decade of life-threatening illnesses to being able to now live the life I always wanted, with more energy, more vitality, more zest for life, more ambition than I've ever had before. And I'm getting older every single year. So that's what I want to share with you. And big announcement, which I have not said before, I am going to be giving away the audio version of the Rain Barrel Effect completely free in about 90 days from now. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be different, though. It is not going to be a reading word for word from the book. Okay. And that is because many of you have heard me say this before. I am not a verbatim reader of books. What I do is that how I read is just very different. I have a video coming out on that soon too. So what I'm going to do is actually take all 31 chapters of the Rain Barrel Effect, and I'm going to go through a teaching of each chapter. And so I still recommend having the book. Ideally have read the book, because you're going to see all the graphs. There's over 42 images and graphs inside the Rain Barrel Effect. There's over 300 scientific citations. So you can show people, listen, this is backed by science, but I'm going to do something fun, hopefully, for our community, and that is to be able to actually give now the hard copy away, the printed paperback, but also I'm going to give away an audio version of the Rain Barrel Effect. We'll certainly put together our waiting list for that, and it will be completely free. So just wanted to make that announcement here on the show. Now, let's get into episode 2000, where you get to hear from my better half, truly my better half, Jacqueline, my wife. So let's get into it. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
All right, everyone, we are live with episode 2000. Excited to be here with you. For me, as I talked about in the intro already today, this for me is a really special show, not just because I'm here joined with my wife right now, which is going to be a really fun interview, our first interview here together. I know many of you have requested her to be on the show, but also 2000 shows, is really proof of concept of what we've been trying to do with this community, which is to grow one of the largest global health communities on the planet, dedicated to simply understanding how our bodies work and realizing that conventional medicine does not have all the answers. Although I am a firm believer in conventional medicine, we do have to understand that with all chronic-based diseases of the body, so whether it be wellness or weight gain or aging, we have to look towards natural health. And the very best thing that we can do is use integrative health, which blends the ancient Ayurvedic wisdom and all of the ancient forms of medicine with state-of-the-art lab testing, etc. So, well, we talked about that in the intro. What I want to do right now is really introduce you to my wife, Jacqueline, who I'm excited to have here with me, but also to let you know that I've taken all of your questions from over the past few years or so that you've wanted to ask my wife, and now she's joined with me here today. She's going to be able to answer those for you far better than I could. And so, Jacqueline, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Really great, like I said, to be here with you. And that is because you are by far and away the most requested guest here on the show. It's only taken 2,000 episodes, but we're here today. And so what I want to do, though, really is ask you the first question about how you started to get into natural health yourself and really for our family. But then after that, I'm going to go right into the questions that have been most requested. So this is going to be a fun interview. We're going to keep it light. We didn't really discuss the questions ahead of time, but Jacqueline's going to be a great sport and be able to answer all of your questions for you. So how did you get into natural health?
So for me, it really was a slow process because it wasn't something that was on my radar screen as, a person who I thought was healthy. I believed that I was healthy, especially as a teenager and a young adult. And I met you, and you were on your own health journey, and I watched sort of all the ways that you were making changes in your life and how that was impacting your health and your vitality. And I was able to see that firsthand. But for myself, I thought I was healthy. I had headaches, which I thought were normal. I had skin issues, which I thought were normal. I had digestive issues, which I thought were normal. And then, watching you make those changes and take control of your health, I realized, wait a minute, the stuff I've been dealing with is not actually normal. And so I started making some of the changes that you kind of helped guide me into changing our diet, changing certain things about my lifestyle. But it really was, the biggest step for me in health was right before we got pregnant and had our first daughter, because that to me was a big point in my life where I said, not only do I need to be in the best health for me, but I want to be in the best health for our children. And I want them to have a healthy life. So I think that's when I really sort of took it up a notch and became far more dedicated than I had been in previous years. And that was, roughly 10 years ago at this point, which I can't believe it's been that long. But so yeah, that's how it started.
And it is, it's wild to think that, we now have a 9-year-old daughter and one that's almost 7, but it always is a journey. So my wife's known me since my early 20s, and early 20s was really when I started to get much more into natural health. And back then it was mainly about nutrition and supplementation. So, that's really where I think most people start. Is probably the best place to start, because you get, as they say, the biggest bang for your buck. If you're going to dedicate yourself to what you put into your body, that's going to give you the most output, for sure. So that's a great place to start too, because the majority of the questions that come in are based on healthy eating and what we do for our girls, and mainly you're cooking the majority of the meals. So, it's how we trying to keep our 2 daughters healthy. And again, for those of you who don't know, maybe you're new to the show, we have a almost 7 and we have a 9-year-old daughter. And again, we are not perfect. So when we give you answers here today on the show, it doesn't mean that, again, we're 100% perfect at doing these things. Just like every other parent, we're simply trying to do our best. That's it. Like our parents did try to do their best with us. Back then, many years back, it was, okay, well, what do you do in the morning? Well, you're eating Fruity Pebbles and you're drinking some fruit juice or maybe some Kool-Aid, and you're just, you're doing the things that typical kids do. And so what we decided is that it doesn't mean that it's better. It's just that we want our daughters to have as healthy a life as possible. We're just trying to do the best that we can with the knowledge that we have right now. Again, like many other parents out there. So how do you try to keep our girls' meals, our kids' meals healthy?
So for me, one of the biggest things is providing variety in their meals and getting them as much, fruits, vegetables, good whole foods that they can try and figure out what they enjoy into their daily routine. We just simply don't keep a lot of processed food in the house. And that's one easy way to kind of keep them out of that stuff. I think we both realize that there's going to be times where they have access to that, kids' birthday parties and, when they're at other events and things like that outside of the house. And even, occasionally us going out to dinner and things like that. We try to keep it at that 80-20 rule you speak about, where, 80% of the time they're, getting really good, nutritious, whole foods in their diet. And occasionally they get to have other stuff that wouldn't be, their typical meal. We do try to eat a very organic diet. I think that's really important, because if you look at, just the chemicals that are being sprayed on food, that's just something that we can eliminate by making sure that we choose organic food. And I know that that's not always easy to do, depending on, what you have access to at your grocery store or, for budgetary reasons. But there are definitely, like for us, berries is something that we just won't buy unless we can get them organic, where other things like avocados or bananas that they're not eating the skin on, if they're not organic, it's, less of a big deal because the outside is not something they're consuming. So I think those, 2 base rules are a good starting place. And it's something that we just kind of have done from day one. And I think the other big thing is allowing our kids to eat like we eat. And we've done that since they were little, and not all children. Our oldest daughter is more picky than our younger daughter. And so I sympathize with parents who have picky eaters. And I realize that, not all kids want to try all foods, but I think that if you give them the opportunity to try the foods that you're eating, you're going to have a bigger success rate when it comes to getting them to incorporate new and different things into their diet and being more adventurous in what they themselves will choose to eat as they grow, as opposed to just giving them, kid food and always feeding them the same 3 meals in rotation. They sometimes don't like what I make and they complain about dinner or whatever it happens to be. And we, give them the opportunity to have more of something else, or, they try a bite, don't eat it, it's fine. And it seems to work okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that we've really decided from the beginning that we were going to spend a little bit more money on organic based food. And so, maybe we don't spend in one certain area, but we spend more on the food that we're eating. Again, it's a personal choice. It's a family decision for everyone. But that's one thing that we felt was important for us. One thing I would say too is that, again, your kids aren't going to always love all of the same foods, all of the same meals, but there can be other options for whatever those healthy foods are in the house. So a big thing that I know that Jacqueline just mentioned is we just try not to keep any of those foods in the house that could then lead to them even having an option to eat those less healthy foods. And really the only time that they're having a food that wouldn't be on our favorite list would be when we do go out to dinner or we're at a party or something like that. And then, they pretty much get to have whatever food that they would like and like to try, except any food that we think that would be really detrimental to their health. Maybe that's food coloring or any specific dyes or something like that we may choose, unless you see it differently.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And our kids definitely, like to try new things. And when they see other foods out and around, they want to have them. And I always let them kind of make the choice for themselves. And then if they have, a feeling of an upset stomach afterward or something like that, we kind of have the conversation about, well, why do you think that is? And let them kind of come to the conclusion that maybe they ate something that wasn't the best for them. But I think we're both also careful about, we don't talk a lot about, don't eat these certain foods. We just kind of provide them with information about why we make the choices we do, so that it comes from a place of positivity and education rather than a place of shame and, don't eat these things because they're bad. I don't think that that's, the best way to approach it for our kids. And also, what works for one kid might not work for another, just like adults. So I think that they need to figure out what makes them feel good, what makes them feel energized when they eat it versus feeling, not well when they consume it.
And one other thing that I would add to that is, without a doubt, because we don't want any of the shame, we don't want any of the guilt around eating foods that maybe aren't healthy for you. We just simply explain, we also, from a young age, they knew what organic was, they knew what non-GMO was, they knew what pesticides were, and that would then allow them, even at the ages of 7 and 9 now, to make the right decisions for them if they're ever out and they say, okay, I can read a label on my own and I can read to see if this has any food coloring or any dyes or anything like that in them, because we want them to ultimately be able to make the right choices for them. That's what this is all about. We're not going to be with them for the rest of their life. And so what we want to do is just from a young age, when they're more impressionable, to teach them, listen, these are the choices that you can make. We're not going to make all of the choices for you, but here's some of the information that might help you with those decisions. So one of the great things that I think that you do too for our kids, and one of the reasons why they're more apt to eat healthy, is that you oftentimes do a lot of the meal planning with them. You're asking them, what would you like in your smoothie? What would you like for your ice cream in the morning? And we'll talk about what that is. What would you like for dinner? And so when kids feel that they've been included in the conversation and that they're just not being like dictated to, I think, at least I've seen, they're more apt to at least, again, try some of these things. So let's go through some of the meals or typical meals that you would create in a day for our girls.
Sure. Yeah. So as you mentioned, one of the things that our girls like to eat sometimes in the morning is breakfast ice cream, which is a pretty simple recipe that you can do in a blender. It's frozen bananas blended with any other type of frozen fruit, and that you can flavor it any way you want. So our oldest likes passion fruit with banana. Sometimes she likes blueberry with banana. Our youngest daughter prefers strawberry or raspberry with her banana. And, you can make it different colors depending on which type of fruit that you're using. Even even, doing something as simple as oatmeal with some chopped up apples and cinnamon in it. That's something that they like. I try to, as you said, give them an option and a choice or some input. And that's, that works 90% of the time. There are definitely days where I'm rushing and they wake up late or something like that. And it's just doing whatever's fastest, so it is a balance there, but breakfast can be, a range of usually some sort of fruit or oatmeal, occasionally a piece of gluten-free toast or something like that. And then cut up fresh fruit. They like that as well. So especially when they get to try the stuff that's in season, us being in the New England area, melon is not always available. And so when that stuff is ripe and in season, it definitely is something that they choose and gravitate toward. Lunch, depending on whether they're at home or going to school, that I find can be challenging because finding something that goes into a lunchbox and stays, either cold or warm can be tricky, but we do our best. And so, but I usually find that that's also a good time if they're not at home to kind of put in some items that I know aren't their favorite, but they'll probably be hungry enough to eat, and it's all that's in there. So they're going to try it and kind of eat as much as they can. Cut up vegetables and hummus, doing some sort of soup in a thermos is something that especially our younger daughter likes. Some turkey roll-ups, things like that, I think are all easy, quick lunchbox foods that you can kind of deal with. When they're home, I tend to give them more options around their lunch, and it just depends on what they're feeling like that day. And then dinners really range, again, depending on what the season is. We like to eat more warm cooked foods, slower cooked foods in the winter months, in the colder months. And in the summer, we'll make salads together. Our oldest daughter loves to help put together a salad. Even doing something as simple as chopping the vegetables to put in a salad or helping make a fresh pesto, getting them involved in the kitchen definitely helps, I think, their willingness to try the foods that they've helped create. And, sitting down with family, I think whenever there's even just beyond our immediate, 4-person family, if there's a grandparent involved or cousins and aunts and uncles, they love to sit and share food together because it's a community-based event and they get to enjoy these great foods in the company of people they love. And it's a really good time to, get them to share their own love of food and try new things.
And both of our families love getting together for not just the holidays, but on weekends and really getting everybody together. So for us to do meals where everybody's sharing is not uncommon. And our daughters love being able to help put some of those things together. So one thing I would say, too, is that they don't eat radically different from how we eat, meaning that we basically eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, Jacqueline and I. Sometimes I have an afternoon smoothie, especially if it's a bigger workout day. And the difference really with our girls is they have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then they have a mid-morning snack, and then they have an afternoon snack. And we try to keep that afternoon snack as best as we can before 4 o'clock, because if we're eating dinner around 5:30, maybe 6 at the latest, we want to make sure that they have an appetite for dinner. If not, then whatever that snack was, if it was too close, it's going to hurt, of course, their dinner, and probably that dinner is a little bit more nutritious than their snack. So one thing that I think they know, so again, like they know what their snack options are, and it's hummus and cut up vegetables, which you always keep in the house, which is great. And they do love that. Oftentimes it's one of the Equal Life organic whole food bars that's simple, easy to take. If I'm making a smoothie at home, my oldest daughter will typically have some of that smoothie as well. She loves being able to make that, so I just let her make it for the both of us. And then in terms of supplements, I can just help a little bit with that one because I do a lot of the supplements for the girls, is that they're not doing a ton of supplements. They're doing the daily nutritional support in their ice cream or in their smoothie. If they're not doing that day for whatever reason, they can do a multivitamin. Both of them can swallow capsules. So right now it's pretty easy. It's just one of the daily activated multi per day because they're both in the weight range where they would only need one, getting towards 2 a day. That's it. They do omega-3s every day. They do vitamin C every day. And that's, I'm trying to think what else. Sometimes they'll do the daily fruit and vegetable blend powder, but they eat so many fruits and vegetables. That is one thing that they do really great on, and you do a great job of varying that. And then in the winter time, which again, in New England, the winter is, 6 to 8 months. So they're doing this for quite a bit of time, but they're doing vitamin D every day. They are doing vitamin C every day, and they are doing, what am I missing here? Any type of immune blend if they're starting to get a little bit sick. And that's typically, we have it on the website, so I'll link it up to the best of my ability. I know that I can't link up supplements on web pages anymore, but it typically contains oregano, thyme, elderberry, and that's what they're mixing. And I typically put it in one of those little plastic medicine cups, and then they just take that with breakfast. They're really good about it. They've been doing that since they were young. And we just say, hey, just take it mid-meal, and you can take it. And our oldest daughter is, she has braces now, so she's not doing any gummies. So she does capsules only and the daily nutritional support. Our youngest daughter does a little bit of both. And so, yeah, it's again, you don't want to overcomplicate things, I think, for your kids either, or yourself. And that's one of the nice things is that we keep it pretty clean, pretty simple. I'd say the closest thing to like processed food would be some of that gluten-free bread that you spoke about before. The ones that we use is basically just millet and water. And I think there's some baking soda in there. There's no starches besides that. It's really clean bread. And I can link that up for sure. And it's funny because your kids just have different tastes sometimes. Like our oldest daughter, she has sardine sandwiches sometimes for lunch, and that's not something that a lot of people would have or our youngest daughter would have, but it's a great way for her to get, of course, omega-3s and good protein. So I think you kind of know the handful of things that your kids like each, and you can kind of keep them stocked in the house.
Right. And as soon as you stock them all, their taste changes and they're onto something new. So it's always, finding what works for them and keeping a good rotation of healthy stuff and giving them some choice so that you can, on the days when they're not really, into making all those choices, they've got something to eat and, you feel good about the choice that they've made.
100%. And it's all, again, like what we're trying to say is you're just doing the best that you can. I actually want to talk a little bit now about some of the fun things that you've been able to come up with where they get to do some treats, we'll say. We don't want to call them, of course, cheat meals or anything like that for kids, especially not around them. But what we do is, and you said 80-20, and I think with nutrition, I always try to keep it more at like 90-10. Yeah. And so it's like 9 out of 10 meals for us, for the both of us, and for our girls. And I think it's really important too, because your kids will listen to the words that you say, but they're going to be more, I keep saying the word apt, but they're going to be more apt to follow what you do. You are a role model for your kids. So if you pull out ice cream every night, again, I'm not judging you, then your kids are probably going to want ice cream every night. And why not, right? Because if you're doing it, they should be able to do it. And I think for us, we're just trying to be as healthy as we can. So it's not like we don't like ice cream or those things, but we just try to be as healthy as we can. So what we do is probably 9 out of 10 meals. So twice a week, they get something fun. And it's probably more towards the weekends, but sometimes midweek, we won't stop ourselves from having something, especially if we're out or people are up. But let's talk about a couple of the fun dessert type things that we might do with our daughters. And I want to make sure that we get to a healthy marshmallow recipe that you just came up with, because during the summertime, we love making s'mores with the girls, with all their cousins up. But marshmallows, as you may know, are one of the most artificial, not good for you foods really on the planet. They're pretty much right up there with Oreos.
Yeah. So as you said, one of the things that I think has helped with, the girls as they get older. When they were younger, it wasn't as big of a challenge, but now that they're getting older and they're in more social settings and they are seeing the types of foods other kids are eating, or they, have been to parties where they want to eat certain things, it's been a fun challenge for me to figure out how to incorporate some of the foods that they like marshmallows or even cake or cookies, things like that are typically not super healthy. How can I make them at home using ingredients that I know are going to be better quality ingredients, or at the very least that don't have some of the stuff that we try to avoid, like artificial dyes or, artificial flavors or any of that more chemical-based food substances that just aren't great for kids. And so you mentioned the marshmallows. Our youngest daughter loves to make s'mores, and the marshmallows marshmallows that we've been able to find. And I haven't found a great one in the store. So yeah, I made some homemade marshmallows, which I am not a baker. I like to cook, and there's a lot of wiggle room in cooking. You can kind of add more salt at the end if it's not salty enough, or, you can make adjustments. But I find with baking, it's a bit more precise. So I was nervous about making these marshmallows, but it was pretty simple. It was just, some sugar, some water, and some high quality grass-fed gelatin. And the process of making them is actually, it's not very difficult, but you do have to watch the temperature, and maybe you can link up the recipe that I followed. But yeah, it turned out to be a great success. And we were able to make these marshmallows with just those 3 ingredients, nothing added, nothing, not too much junk. Yes, there's sugar in them, but they really enjoyed them, and they actually melt really well over a campfire, and they're gooey. And so that's an example of, I think, how we try to give them all of those options, but present it in a way that, like, hey, you can have these foods. We can just, do it in our own kitchen so that we know what's going into it, and it's fun for them to help make them. And then they think I'm really cool because I can make marshmallows.
Yeah, and it's pretty impressive. I have not seen homemade marshmallows before, but the side benefit is when you put them over a campfire, they only golden brown. So if anybody's ever made s'mores before, they don't actually burn like a regular marshmallow. They do not turn black.
They don't catch fire.
They don't catch fire. Yeah, it's very impressive. I think it's again, another testament that you're saying, well, I think that we could find alternatives, right? That's what natural health really is all about. It's like, okay, if someone hasn't already done it, or they're not already making it in a store, could we do it yourself, right? Can you do it on your own? And this is a recipe that you found, you tested it out. And if you look at it, gelatin, grass-fed gelatin, water, and sugar. That's, I think you can do organic sugar, of course. So you're looking at a product that not only is not bad for you, it's actually in some ways kind of good, right? I know that obviously we don't want to put a lot of sugar in our body. We're not doing that. But when you look at this whole recipe, it probably made like 24 marshmallows, yeah, right? And so we're not talking about a lot of sugar overall. We're talking about a light, fluffy treat. And they're going to be having the treat anyways. That's how you want to look at it. Another thing that we'll do in our house is coconut ice cream. So our daughters, just like any kid, obviously enjoy ice cream. So sometimes we'll get some coconut ice cream. One of the brands is Nadamu. I've talked about that before, but there's a lot of coconut-based ice cream. You've made popsicles, or basically coconut milk and fruit-based popsicles before, if you want to take people through that.
So again, you can flavor them any way you want, but you can mix any variation of fruit that your kid might like with some coconut milk or coconut cream, depending on how, creamy you want them versus a traditional popsicle that's more icy. Blend it up in the blender and pour it into a popsicle mold. And you can certainly add, little pieces of fruit if you want it more like something that you can actually bite into and chew versus a popsicle that they're just going to kind of let melt and eat it that way. So, but I think that, again, once the kids are involved, they ask to make popsicles all the time. And it's a great way to use extra smoothie. Like if I have leftover smoothie after we've made it, sometimes I'll just dump it into a popsicle mold and freeze it. And then, on a hot day, if they're looking for something, I can pull one of those out, and it's, a satisfying option for them when it's hot.
And popsicles and the ice cream that we make in the morning is a great way to get those supplements in too. So if your kids
it's a good place to hide things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can put that in there. It's pretty much going to mask the taste of it. And so really easy way, of course, to get the daily nutritional support. That's vanilla or chocolate or any nutritional supplement that you're using. Really easy to mix it in there. But again, it's just all about keeping things fun, not depriving your kids of anything, but also teaching them that this is a healthier alternative. One other thing, and I'll just say, is that every once in a while, probably every couple weeks, maybe once to twice a month, you'll make cookies with the girls too. And they'll get to make cookies along with you, and you'll go over the ingredients that you're using, clean, healthy ingredients, or more natural ingredients. But also the last ones that you made were thumbprint cookies. And those were really fun because they got to choose the actual jam that went in the middle, which was like a local, organic based jam. And they could make one blueberry and one raspberry depending on their taste. And those were absolutely delicious.
Yeah. Our daughters love to be in the kitchen. It definitely gets, there are times where I know I have to set aside the time because there's extra cleanup involved and all of that. But when they get to do it with you, I think there's two benefits, because they want to then eat the product that they've helped make, but also it's teaching them how to prepare their own food later in life. So I'm hoping that eventually when they, leave the nest at 40, they will decide to cook their food rather than, eat all their meals out, or at least have the skill to do it should they choose to. So I think that's part of the goal.
Yeah. And again, a love of cooking and just being creative. It's just coming up with alternatives, understanding that you could make it this way, but how could you substitute to use healthier things? And we do teach them that. So the next question where I want to go from here is just a fun one. I want to add some fun ones into this as well. Most people know that my favorite cheat meal is a nice bowl of pasta and some bread. I'm pretty much happy with that. I do remember it's kind of one of those childhood memories. Every Sunday, going over to my grandmother's house, having a nice pasta dinner. And so that's one of my favorite meals to definitely consume. We both come from Italian and Portuguese backgrounds. That's kind of a lot of the foods we grew up with. And then, for dessert, maybe a couple cookies, something like that. That's my idea of a nice, fun, I don't want to say reward, cheat meal, flex meal, whatever you say. But that's really all it is. It's like it's deciding that you can have any foods that you want, and you're eating healthy the majority of the time. And so when you do that, then life is good. You're going to be just fine. So I want to ask you, what is your favorite cheat meal?
Boy, my favorite cheat meal is probably anything with cheese. I really enjoy cheese, even though I know it's not the best for me. So, a cheesy pasta, a great piece of pizza, something like that. Even like I love eggplant parmesan. So all of those Italian cheesy, saucy foods would be probably top of my list. And then as a sweet option, I definitely love anything chocolate. So I'm a chocolate girl through and through. I'm not big on ice cream. I'm not big on cake or things like that, but I love a good chocolate chip cookie, maybe with a little sea salt, something like that.
Yeah. And so that's why it's funny, because when you look at our two different tastes, although I do love cheese, don't get me wrong, I just don't eat it. Like there's always foods you can say when you've done it 50 times and you keep getting the same result, which is not feeling great. Eventually you could choose, not to do it. That's what I've done for myself. But that's why on our table, or if we go out to dinner, there's always plenty to choose from, because we each have our own little different tastes, which is always fun too, to be able to choose from other people's dishes and desserts. So moving now from the food topic, we've gotten lots of questions from our community on skincare. And that is because I've reviewed quite a few skincare, beauty-based products in the past on my Friday review shows. And many of the, I would say, reviews and the feedback I've gotten from you. So basically, I've said, hey, what do you think about this product? What do you think about this product? For me, I'm someone that studies the vitamins, the minerals, the herbs, how the skin works, how porous it is, how it gets into your bloodstream. But when it comes to these specific products, I mean, you really have become, in my opinion, an expert when it comes to skincare. And the reason is that you've put in your time, you've tried many different products, you've studied, you've looked these things up. So what I want to do is have you take us through a day in the life of your skincare. Then we'll get into kind of what the products are, but let's talk about what that looks like first, so that other people can begin to maybe emulate some of this as well in their life.
Sure. So, my skincare routine it's not overly complicated, although I am particular about what I put on my skin, and that includes on my body, not just my face. So I think the first thing that I try to do is eliminate anything that has sort of that chemical stuff that I just don't want to be putting it on my skin or my kid's skin. So I avoid, anything that's not a truly clean green beauty product. Fragrance is a big thing for me. That's something I've always been sensitive to. So if it's a product with fragrance, I just won't use it. But I think that, fortunately, now there are lots of really great clean beauty brands on the market. And so there's a lot of options out there. But in terms of my skincare routine, every day I don't cleanse my face in the morning. I try not to use anything that's too stripping. So I just kind of wash it with warm water, and then I apply usually some sort of hydrating toner, some sort of, hydrosol mist, and those products vary, and I have a couple that I keep going back to, but I use a toner. Then I always use some sort of...
So just want to stop for 1 second. So why don't you clean your skin first thing in the morning?
Yeah, I find that for my skin type that it's actually too stripping. So I'm, almost 40 years old, and I'm at that point where I have, as they say, mature skin. So I don't want to take those really good, healthy oils that my skin has produced overnight. And that's also the protective barrier of the skin. So I don't want to strip my skin of all of that. I do cleanse my skin at night before I go to bed. I don't wear a ton of makeup, but if I do have on makeup, I'm especially careful to make sure that I've really cleansed that off really well before I go to bed. And then in the morning, I wake up with, all the skincare that I've applied that night before. It gives my skin that really nice, dewy protective barrier. I kind of just wipe off the sleep that has happened to my skin with warm water, and then I start applying my skincare for the day. So that's why I don't cleanse in the morning, but I do cleanse at night.
So if the evening is more of a specific routine, take us through what the evening steps look like for the skincare.
Sure. So I cleanse my skin really well, usually with a foaming based cleanser. I don't like anything that's too harsh. I try not to use anything that's too gritty. If I do use an exfoliant, it's usually a chemical exfoliant that will have some alpha hydroxy acids in it, or something like that. Occasionally, if it's a very fine physical exfoliant, then it's not something I do often, so that I'm not breaking down that protective barrier of the skin. But acids can be a great way to sort of exfoliate quickly. So cleanse, exfoliate occasionally, and then I will again tone my skin, apply my toner. I'm a big fan of serums, and there are a few serums that I've used over the years. There are a couple of serums that I continuously go back to, but I always put on a good serum, and I find that my skin likes change. So there are a couple of products that I rotate, because I think, at least my experience is, my skin gets used to things, and once it starts getting used to it, the benefit kind of goes away. And so if I switch it up, the skin is more likely to respond. I don't know if that's an actual scientific theory or if it's just my own thing, but I like to keep it fresh. And so once I apply the serum, then I always apply a nice moisturizer, and that will depend on whether it's, summer versus winter. In the winter, I try products that are far more hydrating, because my skin does tend to get dry. And so I want to provide that extra hydration. And in the summer, I use something lighter, because again, I feel like my skin doesn't need as much hydration. And then I usually end with an eye cream, because that's something that I didn't always do, but I find that the older that I get, it's definitely an area of my skin where I need a little bit more love and affection. So I've got to put that eye cream around the eyes.
Excellent. So now let's break it down even further. Let's give people the products, a couple products maybe for each one that you like to use, because I know that. So for Jacqueline, not giving it all away, her skincare cabinet it's not quite to the extent of my supplement cabinet, because I have, let's say, multiple supplement cabinets. I mean, I have all my typical, let's say I use, somewhere, let's say around a dozen products per day, 10 to 12 products. But I've got another good 50 in the background that I'm always kind of experimenting with, and, that I formulate for Equal Life. So I'm always looking at, okay, what am I looking for? What do I love to use mitochondrial wise or anti-inflammatory wise, et cetera. And you're the same way. I mean, when you enjoy something, you're basically just testing out more things that you are enjoying using. So let's go through essentially what you're doing now for your evening routine, since that's the more of the step process for a skincare routine, like most people would have questions on. So I know that you're using your toner to get started. You've cleansed your face. What's the toner? And then let's go through the different serums and moisturizers and eye creams that you're using.
Sure. So the first toner that I really keep going back to is by a company called Indie Lee, and they make a CoQ10 toner that I really like on the skin. I think it's really hydrating, and it just kind of mists on the skin and does a good job of giving me that initial moisture that I'm looking for under the serum. I think the other toner that I've used is by Ilia. It's actually Ilia's hydrosol mist that I like as well. And so those are two that I will spray on my face before I apply a serum. Serums for me, I could go on and on about serums, but there are several that I'm using right now. Tata Harper makes beautiful serums. She has several in her line, depending on what your skincare needs are. I tend to gravitate toward her products that are for mature skin, things that are going to protect against fine lines, wrinkles, things like that. I had some acnetic skin when I was younger, but that doesn't seem to be much of an issue for me now. So I really like her products for... Because
you changed your diet? Just
yes,
want to put that in there?
I did. It was all based on diet. That cheese I used to really like to eat was not good for my skin. So that made a huge difference. And cleaning up my gut was one of the biggest game changers for my skin completely. So I would agree with that. And that is something that I haven't mentioned, is that in addition to all of the skincare products that I use, drinking enough water, not over-consuming caffeine, staying away from the foods that make my skin react, and even something as simple as like a glass of red wine for me, I see it in my skin the next morning, where as if I have, maybe some tequila in a cocktail, it doesn't affect my skin the same way. And I know that's different for everyone, but those are things that I've noticed in my skin that have made a big difference. So
I didn't want to cut you off there, but I did want to just throw in the importance of, it's not just the products, of course, but it's what you're putting into your body. So you're talking about the external routine. And then of course, everyone should have an internal routine, but we'll save those for the other podcasts. One thing I just want to say about Tata Harper, every time you get a new package by them, I'm like, let me look at the packaging. Because again, when you formulate, and that's something that you love to do, you also, I am someone that just loves the industry in general, and that's health and beauty. And so when I see their packaging, I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. I was like, that's amazing.
She makes beautiful products, and I feel really confident buying anything from her line. I think that it's a great option if someone's looking for a range of needs. You can go on her website and see all of the products that she has. So I'm a big fan of her stuff. In addition to that, there's a brand called Agent Nature, and they make a vitamin C serum that's actually dry. You mix it with water, not oil, water. I like that product as well because it gives me some real good vitamin C direct to the skin. I think that my skin does well with vitamin C, not every day, but a couple of times a week to kind of help with cell turnover and just the plumpness of the skin. Also taking vitamin C internally is really, really helpful for my skin. I see a huge difference in my skin when I'm making sure I'm getting a good dose of vitamin C every day. So I think vitamin C can be really helpful, and it works really well for people with acne-prone skin as well. So vitamin C is definitely a product that I would recommend for most any skin type. And then after that is my moisturizer. And for moisturizers, depending on the time of year, so one product they advertise it as a serum that I actually use as my last step, and it's one of my Desert Island products, is Vintner's Daughter. It's an oil-based serum, but I use it as my last step, especially in the summer. I like it. It's light, it's clean, it absorbs well into the skin. And even though they say it's a serum, I use it as the top layer of moisture on my skin. It provides a range of benefits, I think. It helps brighten, it helps tone, it helps tighten. It doesn't clog the skin like a lot of facial oils. So I think it's a great product for most skin types. And then in the winter months, I really like a product called Blue Cocoon by May Lindstrom. I knew it would come to me. May Lindstrom's Blue Cocoon. And that's a really thick shea butter based moisturizer that I think goes on really well, provides a ton of hydration, and it contains blue tansy, which helps calm the skin. It brings down redness, inflammation, things like that, which for me in the winter, I tend to get that redder, drier skin, partly because of the weather. And I think also too, it's just, a harder time of year. I'm getting less vitamin D. My skin isn't as vibrant as it could be. So I like that product as well.
Yeah, they have a product called Youth Dew as well, I think, that has a little bit of the, carrot oil, right? That gives it the red?
Carrot seed oil. She's got some great products in her line as well. And there are, a couple of websites that people can check out. I think Folane, they're a Boston-based company, and this is a company that kind of does the legwork for you. So anything that they're selling has already been put through the rigorous standards of not containing certain hormone disruptors and carcinogens that a lot of beauty care products have, fragrances as well. And so if you go on their website, you can find all of these brands. Credo Beauty is another website where people can look for both skincare, and Credo actually sells a lot more makeup products. For makeup, Ilia has great products. They make a great clean mascara. They make a great, it's basically a tinted moisturizer that you can use as a foundation or things like that on your skin. Lip balms, they make it all. So Credo Beauty and Folane both they're a good starting place for someone who's looking to say, I'm not really sure what I want. I want to go see what they have available for this particular item, and they'll have all the brands that kind of make those things that fit within that category.
Yeah, literally they are maybe a 3-minute walk, from us in Boston, which is
Folane,
really Folane. Yeah. And so it's been nice to see them start as one small, maybe 80-foot, square foot store. But again, beautifully curated with just the products that would meet the standards of a company like the Environmental Working Group and their Skin Deep portion of it, which basically gives things a rating A, B, C, and shows them as, non-toxic or low toxicity. And they also have a range, meaning like you don't have to buy $100, $200, $300 products. You can also buy less expensive ones. Just keep in mind, like nutritional supplements, like shampoos, conditioners, they're always going to be more expensive than your CVS-based brand, your Costco-based brands, simply because the products that go into them cost more money, right? So, if like you're putting blue tansy or you're putting carrot seed oil into something, well, there's just a more expensive product. So, it's one of those things where you just have to decide, where the areas are that you want to spend a little bit more and cut back in other areas. Maybe you use, like, what's a good example? Should someone spend more on their serum or their toner? Like, what's a good place to cut back?
So toners in general are not typically that expensive, and they last a while. The one thing about all of this skincare is that they're really high performing, and a little goes a long way. So that was one mistake, that when I started all of this, I was kind of slathering everything on like I would the old stuff I was using. And I found out really quickly that I did not need that much. So when I'm using something like Vintner's Daughter, I'm using a drop, maybe 2 on my skin at most. And that's definitely enough to hydrate my entire face and neck and the whole area that I'm spreading it over. I think that serums are definitely a place where you want to spend a little more. I find that you can find great serums in a range. So under the $100 mark or over the $100 mark, there is a range of serums depending on what you're looking for. And they are all pretty good if you go on either of those websites and look for that stuff. I think that it just depends on what your skincare needs are. With moisturizers, you can make a simple moisturizer at home if you want, just by using simple olive oil from your cabinet. If you've got the type of skin that doesn't clog easily, and I know there are some older women that I've spoken to, that have beautiful skin, and you ask them, "What's your secret?" And they say, "Olive oil. I put olive oil on my skin." So I think it's just depending on what your needs are, where you are in your stage of life. Do you have that younger skin that might tend toward more acne or be overproducing in oil versus a more mature skin that can actually absorb that type of oil? So, but serums, I think, are a good place to get a good amount of bang for your buck.
Yeah, I want to come back to these more advanced versions of skincare because, back in the day, my great aunt and my grandmother, who I both knew very well, they came over from Italy and they put olive oil on their skin, and you would see them at night and their face was basically glowing because they had so much olive oil on it. But again, we've come a long way since then, and a lot of the olive oil out there is very oxidized. So that's not obviously as good. Before we get to really where you think the future of skincare is going, I want to talk about an interesting one that I did learn from you, and that was something called honey tapping. And so essentially, we went out on Saturday night. Oh, let's say Friday night it probably was, because we go up more Friday night than Saturday night. And I love going out, love just enjoying a meal with our family. And I probably ate some foods that were not the best for me. And I ended up getting like an under the skin, like deeper pimple. And I'm like, what is this? When is it going to go away? I don't want this on my face. And so you said, try honey tapping. And I was like, what's honey tapping? So explain that, what that is, and kind of how the magic happens with that.
Sure. So honey tapping is kind of what it sounds like. You actually put honey all over your face, and you want to make sure that it is a raw honey. You don't want it to be a pasteurized honey, ideally a raw wildflower organic honey. And you put it in a layer over your face, not too thick because it will start to run. So a thin layer of honey all over your face. And then you actually use the tips of one or two of your fingers to tap the honey. And as you do that, as you're tapping your face with your fingers, you'll start to feel that the honey sort of clumps and sticks to the fingers. And so you get this exfoliating effect from the tapping. So as you're tapping, your fingers are pulling the honey away from the skin, and the idea is with it comes the oil, the debris, anything that's trapped within the pores. So you get the benefit of the manual removal of that stuff that's in the skin, in the pores, but then also the added benefit of the hydration of the honey. Honey is super hydrating for the skin and really healing. Anytime you get a burn or a cut or a scrape, it's something that we use with the kids too, when they've had, skinned knees or a bit of an area that's bothering them, putting some honey on that area because it's antifungal, it's antibacterial, it's pretty much any microbe that you can think of. So you get that added benefit and the antioxidant benefit from the honey as well. So it can be a real nice way to inexpensively treat the skin. And you can do it even when you don't have, a breakout or anything like that. It can be really healing and exfoliating for the skin if you do it once a week. And it's also fun. You can let the kids get involved too. They can honey tap if they want.
Yeah, it's almost like a mask, but you're actively working the honey and I found that it kind of, like you said, it becomes tacky, it dries up. And the difference between that and a mask, you might say, well, why not just do a mask? And the mask will also draw out, whether it's French green clay or whether it's bentonite clay. Both of those are fantastic. I've talked about those in previous podcasts. But with honey tapping, just like Jacqueline mentioned, antibacterial, antifungal, antimicrobial. So that's why it can also help with the acne, because the acne very well could be bacterial, or the pores could simply be clogged. And so you're trying to draw out whatever those toxins are under the skin. It could just be from walking around in the city and all the pollutants and all the pollution in the air is now in your pores. It could be a variety of things. It could also be, again, the foods that you're eating, not agreeing very well. And now you end up with, a little bit of acne or pimples, whatever it might be. But, it was fun to do. It actually worked. It was gone within about 2 days. And I also found that a lot of the discoloration, which also typically comes with acne, maybe it helped with that as well. Maybe it just, was anecdotal and, that is just my experience. But the downside is there's very little downside. What I would say is anytime you're applying any new product to your skin, always test it in one small area and maybe not even on your face, maybe just on your arm the day before. Use a quarter size use of the serum or lotion or honey just to see how your body reacts, because we don't want you to end up the next day with an inflamed face or red face or anything like that. And so again, everybody's skin reacts differently. And so that's one thing that you want to watch for. All right, one more question before we move on to some fun questions to end the show. What do you believe that the future of skincare looks like? I've talked about before what I believe the future of supplements looks like. What do you believe the future of skincare looks like?
I think the trend is definitely moving toward a cleaner, greener beauty. I think more women are becoming aware of the toxins in their skincare, and skincare is not just what you put on your face. It's the shampoo you're using. It's the lotions that you put on your body. It's the soap that you use. It's all of those things. So I think we're seeing an expansion of green beauty into all of those areas. So it's green shampoo, it's clean, healthy ingredients in your body wash, it's lotions that contain few ingredients and whole plant-based things rather than chemicals that are made in a lab, that are loaded with fragrance, that, are going to impact your overall health. And then beyond that, I think that we are seeing a trend toward having a range of products. So it used to be, at least 10 years ago or 10 plus years ago, when I first really got into this, the majority of the products on the market were really expensive. And I think that that's partly because it was such a niche market that it was hard to source those materials. It was hard to process them. And those high-end brands still exist, and I definitely recommend them. But there are also some really affordable, great brands out there. And as companies are expanding their understanding of what the consumer wants and how we can incorporate better, healthy products into their line, I think that it's only helping bring costs down a bit and getting people to realize that what works for one person's skin is not what works for everyone's skin. I mean, I remember that as a teenager, wanting to always just do what all of my friends were using because their hair looked a certain way. So I assumed that if I used that same shampoo or that same hair product, it would tame my wildly curly hair. And it took me a while to realize that I have very different hair, just like I have different skin, and everybody's different. So I think the trend will be kind of that mixing and matching of products so that you get a very tailored skincare routine and hair care routine, or, whatever your routine involves, but it's specific to you and your needs, and it changes seasonally. I think that's another thing too, that we'll see, that people use different products depending on the time of year, because just like our bodies have different needs at different times of the year, so does our skin, so does our hair, our nails, all of it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's the same. It's the exact same for the nutritional supplement industry, moving towards the cleanest products as well as a more personalized approach. And so there's always the foundational products, meaning like everyone needs to clean their skin, and then they need some type of toner, and then they need some type of moisturizer. So you always need those things. It's just, it might vary on the individual. What I found for my skin is that I have to use lighter things on my skin. And if not, it just tends to get clogged more. And also, I'm very sensitive to eyes. My eyes have always been sensitive to the outside world. Literally since I was 4 years old, I had allergies. I was on allergy shots at like 8 years old. I was taking Allegra at like 6 years old, like ridiculous things, right? But of course, so much of that had to do with my nutrition and my gut. All of that was fixed. Now I no longer have allergies, which is amazing, but I still have to be careful with putting, a lot of times they say, oh, these products are for men, and they might have more like of a woods-based smell to them, or they smell like the forest. And for me to put that on my face is like, okay, I'm taking the forest and putting it on my eyes, and that certainly does not work. So, personalized approach, being able to see if some of these companies have samples, or maybe you purchase them with a couple friends and you all try it out together. I think that's a great way to be able to do it as well. All right, we have some fun questions now coming up to be able to end the show. Jacqueline, I appreciate you being such a good sport so far. Me just putting these questions on you and you being able to answer them with no problem. And again, that's what this is really all about. Just having a fun conversation, teaching you a little bit of exactly what we do, and simply saying, hey, if it works for you or it sounds interesting, give it a shot. And then, of course, let us know what you think. And in the comments below, let us know some of your favorites as well. What are some of your favorite go-to kids meals, your favorite skincare-based products? We'd love to hear from you. All right, so first question in our more fun personal questions. What's one thing you really love to do in life that people may not know about you?
I really love music. That's something that I really enjoy. And so I try to incorporate music into my day in some way, shape, or form. So whether it's listening to music while I make breakfast, or I always have music on in the car. I also like to use music as a way to kind of reset the moment with the kids. It's a good way to, if things are not going well, you put on a song that everybody likes and you dance for a few minutes. So music is definitely a source of fun, a source of joy, and something that helps change my mood. So I would say it's music.
Yeah, you do love music. It's funny because in that way, we couldn't be more different.
Right.
Because for me, I never really listened to music. I think when I was younger, I listened to music just because my friends were listening to music. And so I said, okay, I want to be able to keep up with what they're listening to. But for me, it would never dawn on me really to put on music in the car, which is kind of strange. So I'm definitely like an outlier in that regard. I love to just be in my own little world, as I've said before. My thoughts are always running through my head. Who even knows what they are, or I'm reading or something like that. However, I will say, when you do put on music, especially when you're making dinner at night or something like that, I do love coming home and hearing, although we don't exactly always have the same taste, some music. And it is it's a good mood setter and mood changer. And for that, I totally get it. I totally understand it. And it's always fun when I try to sing along with the song because I don't know lyrics at all, nor do I even hear them. So I'm basically just making things up along the way.
Yeah. And the girls really enjoy when you sing too. It's always an entertaining moment for the whole family.
So having said that, thank you for sharing that. And that is great. What's one thing, I don't want to give something about me, but what's one thing that you feel that the listeners in our community may not know about me?
Ooh, I don't think that the listeners would know that you're a very talented artist. An artist from the sense of you can actually draw and paint. And I've seen some sculptures that you've made as well. So I'm not sure if your listeners would know that about you, but you are quite talented in the field of art.
I appreciate that. And that is something I've never mentioned before. That's for sure. I think it's something that has had to take a back seat, since I started my really career in I would say nutrition, personal training earlier in my 20s, and then of course functional medicine, integrative health. But it is something that I loved and have always loved doing, and it was how I spent a lot of my free time as a kid. I wouldn't say that I read as much as a kid, but I would draw more as a kid. So I do paint and I do sculptures, but my real love is drawing and like mixed media sketching, that type of thing. And I hope to be, we've talked about this before, and I've talked about this on the podcast too, but I really believe in the phases of life. Like I really do. And hopefully it's come through on the show here today, but Jacqueline and I really have said that, well, this phase of our life for about 20 years, because our girls are 2 years apart. This is all about our girls. It really is. And we will do anything that they need. And it doesn't mean doing for them, but it means making sure that they have what they need to grow up healthy and feel loved. And that's really such a big part of it. So for me, art has had to take a back seat, but I do look forward to it maybe in 20 more years, from now. And that's okay, because it will always be there. But thank you. That was nice of you to bring it up. That is something that I'd love to do. And I maybe get to do it for 5 or 10 minutes on the weekend doing sketches with our daughters.
Right. They like to make you draw certain things, which I actually dread when they ask me to draw things for them, because I know it will never compare to how you draw it. So I usually just kind of punt that to the end of the day when you're around, and I say, when Dad's back, he'll help you draw that bunny. Because it's just not going to go well if I'm doing it. Yeah,
I'm drawing sketches of hedgehogs and bunnies and little puppies, and then they're cutting them out and putting them on cardboard.
Right, coloring them in.
So it's fun. It is fun. And it's just, again, it's something that I was just born being able to do. And I certainly put in many, many hours trying to get better at it, and look forward to one day getting back to it. So
I look forward to that too.
So 2 questions left. This question is something that I don't think that we've ever really discussed, but we do share similar life philosophies. We may have different flex meal preferences. We might have different music tastes. We might have different skincare based routines. But one thing that we do really agree on is basically our personal philosophies about the world in general. We've talked through this many, many times, and also about our family. But what would you say that our highest family values are? And the reason I ask you this is not to impart them on anybody else, but simply saying, if you haven't had this conversation with your partner, it might be nice to do so that you basically have a life philosophy that will guide your decisions. So it makes decisions easier when you have a certain value set that you try to live by. So what would you say our highest family values are? And then I'll share mine, see if we do agree.
I would say that, one, kindness is a big value in our family. I think that we try to treat each other kindly, even if we're having a disagreement, or treat our children kindly so that they will themselves, be kind not only to other children, but also to themselves. So when they make mistakes, they know that mistakes happen and they can move beyond them rather than getting upset for those mistakes. I think that we want them to understand that, the way they view the world is not the way everybody else views the world. And they're going to have a different opinion from other people. They're going to enjoy doing different things from other people. And that's okay. That's part of life. That's what makes this world a beautiful place. But to always approach those differences from a place of kindness and also a place of curiosity. I think we want our kids to be curious. We want our kids to be interested in learning all the time and taking what they learn and seeing what fits for them, what makes sense for them. I think we like to continue to learn ourselves and learn with the kids. So that's something that I think is important to us. And also being able to be truthful, I think, about what's important to you, being able to talk about your feelings and speak from a place of truth is really important. I think that it can be not only damaging to your relationship when you're not truthful, but it can be damaging to your health. If you're holding in emotions or holding in feelings or not saying what you really mean, that will eventually manifest in sadness or stress or other emotions that can hurt your health. So I think we both try to be truthful with each other, be truthful with our children, teach them how to be truthful as well, and understand that people are not always going to get it right the first time or the second time or ever sometimes. But it's okay because that's part of life. Life is messy. Making mistakes is part of life. And it's just taking what you can from those mistakes, learning, moving forward, never stopping and continuing to try and just evolving in that way. I think those are 3 things that we really try to live by, both you and I as a couple, as well as parents, and in the context of our extended family. So I don't know if you've got more to add.
No. I mean, those are actually, that's exactly what I would add. I mean, the kindness, the curiosity, meaning that they have to be kind to each other 100%, but also to others, even if others aren't really being kind to them. We don't allow them to just be a doormat, right? We don't say that, but we say walk away. Right. Just remove yourself from the situation if possible, because no one's allowed to talk to you like that. But at the same time, there's no need for you to go back and say those things or do those things. So that's a big one. Curiosity. I mean, we've traveled with them since they were young. We always try to get them to explore new things, whether it's foods or adventures, just to have them be curious, but also just not afraid, right? Just to participate in life. And in terms of, I would say, the learning, it's like letting them explore what's interesting to them. That's always been a big thing. So they're allowed to be their own individual. Mm-hmm. We're not asking them to be anything, meaning that they don't need to play a sport just because I like the sport. They don't need to study this in school because I like that topic. It's like, what do you like? Don't worry about what I like or what Jacqueline likes. You do what you like. Now, at the same time, I do say that there are some things in life that you're not going to love to do, but we still have to do them.
Like brushing your teeth.
Brushing your teeth is a good one. When you wake up in the morning, you should brush your teeth. You don't have to like brushing your teeth in order to do it. You don't have to like going to bed earlier in order to do it, not be tired the next morning. So there are things that I always say, like, listen, and I also just say some days are going to be better than others. Now, the nice thing is tomorrow is a brand new day. We try to look at life that way. And the last thing that I'll add is that I always just want to make sure that I might get everything wrong raising them, but I just need to make sure that they know that they are loved. And I know that you're great at that. For me, I try my very best, meaning that every single day I'm telling them that I love them from when they wake up to when they go to bed. And also I'm just trying to be present with them, because it's very easy for me to be on my phone and answering an email or a Slack message or text message, like any of these things. But at the same time, I realize, hey, they're going to be teenagers in just a couple of years. Do I want them on their phone all the time when we're trying to have a conversation? So those things go away. I try to stay present. Again, we're not perfect, but we look at also where they're at right now, but really where they're going to be 10 years from now. What do we want them to be as young adults and teenagers, and just knowing that they can count us. So if something happens in their teenage years or whatever it is, or they're in a bad situation, whatever it is, we just want them to know that they can talk with us, they can ask us questions with no judgment. We'll be there for them.
Yeah, I agree.
So last question of the day is, what are you most looking forward to for us, our family, our girls over the next year or so, or maybe even a couple years? Okay.
I think that one of the things I'm looking forward to most, our kids are at a really great age right now. And so I love seeing that they're at this point where their growth is rapid. And, I feel like every week one of them wakes up and I look at them and think, you grew, you got bigger, you look different to me. And so that aspect of just having kids at this age is really interesting to me, because I think that they are growing at such a pace that it's fun to see who they're becoming. And they're really starting to develop their own personalities and likes and dislikes. And so that's fun to watch, I think, for both of us. And I also enjoy, we're at this point because of everything that's gone on in the world in the last year with the pandemic and all of that. I think we've both reevaluated what's important to us and what isn't, that we used to think was important. And so we've kind of become this family that's ready for anything, that we can kind of take on pretty much any challenge that's thrown our way. And so I think it will be an interesting year as we figure out where ultimately we settle down as a family, what kind of home we end up creating for ourselves. And so I'm excited to see where that all takes us as well.
Yes, same exact here. It's just, if you had asked me pre-pandemic what my goals are, I would give you all the specifics, the 1 or 2 cities that we were looking to move to, buy a home in. We knew the exact schools that our girls are probably going to, all of those things. And now for me, it's just about enjoying the journey, because we can't control all of our outside environmental factors. But what we can control is how you and I and our girls react to that. So now I'm perfectly happy finding a place that we feel comfortable settling down. But of course, I would love to have that house that we can call our home. But at the same time, again, I'm not worried about it. I love my work. I love our family, our life. And so just staying flexible. It's kind of like we're going to keep moving to that next pace, and we'll see where that takes us, and just keep enjoying the ride. And that's what it seems right now for many of us. That's the best that we can do. And honestly, it can be pretty great as long as we keep that attitude. Anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I appreciate you having me on today and giving me the chance to chat with you. This is a strange but interesting, way for me to spend my morning. And it's definitely cool to see, I listen to your podcast and I obviously get to hear it from that end, but it's fun to actually be here with you and sit and watch what you do on a daily basis. And so thank you for inviting me on. It was fun.
Thank you. I'm sure that the listeners, our community is going to be much more excited to hear your voice than mine during this interview. It's always nice to be able to have you on and really share our life philosophy on how we're raising our daughters. We might not always agree on 100% of things either, but we're willing to have the discussions, talk it through, make it through what we feel is ultimately the best decision for us and for our family. And I know that as if we always keep the main thing, which is making sure that our daughters are happy, that they're healthy, that they're loved, and that we're trying to do that in all aspects of life, that things will always be great. So once again, thank you so much. Great having you on the show. And hopefully it doesn't take 2,000 more episodes to get you back on. I'm sure now that you've presented yourself to our audience that they're going to want you back on again soon. So thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate you. Episode 2000 is now in the books. And of course, we'll be back tomorrow with episode 2001. Take care, everyone. Have an amazing day. Thank you so much for tuning into today's show. And you know that what I love to do on a weekly basis is to see if we can come up with some new opportunities for you to be able to save while at the same time get the very best functional medicine-based products in the world. And I mean that. All of these products are third-party tested. They are made in the United States, and they come from the very best ingredients. And this week, what we have for you is the opportunity, the ability to get 2 bags of the daily fruit and vegetable blends. So our very best 22 organic fruits and vegetables that have been literally juiced and dehydrated and put in their purest form right in this bag for you from 22 organic fruits and vegetables and superfoods. And you get that in their brand new containers, a low waste based bag. People have loved the daily nutritional support bags so much that we wanted to do the same for the daily fruit and vegetable blend. So now you can get these nice low waste based bags, easy to travel with. Plus, we're giving you a completely free eco glass container. That means that you get this glass container with beautiful etching on it of the EcoLife logos of the 2 circles coming together to form dynamic equilibrium, balance, unity. You get that with its bamboo airtight cover, so totally sustainable, eco-friendly, looks great on your countertop. Purchase 2 daily fruit and vegetable blends. Remember, 22 organic fruits and vegetables, a rainbow of colors. There's no way that you could eat all of this in a day. All of these different colors, all of these different fruits and vegetables and superfoods. You get 2 bags, and what we do is we ship you a glass eco canister completely free to put that right on your counter so that you know it's there each and every day to keep your healthy regimen going. For this great offer, head on over to equi.life. That's eco.life for this exclusive offer. Take care, everyone.